Welcome to the Brain Boost program. This program is designed to help you explore new ideas for activities that can help keep your brain healthy if you have early memory problems or have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment or very mild dementia. If you have an interest in finding new ways to maximize your brain health, this program is right for you. Look for the accompanying episode guide to help you navigate the activities in this program. I'm Dr. Greg Jica, and I'm a neurologist who focuses on taking care of patients with memory problems caused by diseases like Alzheimer's. I'm also a neuroscientist searching for new ways to slow and/or stop memory problems in aging. I've been researching ways to promote healthy brain aging for almost 35 years now, and while we continue to look for new medicines and potential cures for diseases like Alzheimer's, you should know that there's a lot you can do to promote your own brain health. Things such as mental stimulation, social engagement, physical activity, diet, and many other daily activities, all of which can make a huge impact. We hope you try some of these activities at home or come up with your own. Most of all, we want you to realize that you can take control of your own brain health through such activities.
It's getting cooler. Can you feel it? Fall is one of my favorite seasons. The leaves change color and turn from their usual green to bright, vibrant colors of gold and red. It is a beautiful season. There's a lot to do, too. Leaves are ready to be raked, and for the children, that means the exhilaration of jumping in them. I love the sound of walking on crisp leaves that crunch under my feet. A fall walk is a great time to take in the beauty and sounds of this season. Some people enjoy spending time around a campfire this time of year. Just think of the warmth and that campfire smell. Other fall activities may include a hayride or picking apples. Some people don their favorite flannel to wear, and some people might cheer on their favorite football team to victory. Fall should also be a time to participate in activities that promote our brain health. During the fall, gardens are ready to harvest, and with that comes the opportunity to cook many of our favorite fall recipes that bring this unique season alive. The fresh garden harvest provides many fruits and vegetables that are critical for your brain's health. Diets, especially rich in vegetables and fruits, and low in saturated fats, have many health benefits. Healthy diets contribute to a healthy microbiome, our gut health, and the research is showing that a healthy gut contributes to a healthy brain. It's never too late to start working on a healthy diet. Let's explore a cooking segment that uses some delicious harvested vegetables. We'll be making an autumn hash that is packed full of brain-healthy nutrients.
Today we'll be making a fall harvest hash. I'm going to be using some particular vegetables for this, but the biggest thing I want you to know is that you could use pretty much anything that you have on hand. So I'm going to give you a basic formula for putting this hash together, but then you can use what you have in your fridge and in your pantry or what you've been given by a neighbor. So we are going to start out with some sort of fall vegetable, hence the fall harvest hash. So I have a sweet potato here. I have already roasted this off. This took about 35 minutes in a 400-degree oven. But by par cooking it, that means I can just pull the skin off of this glorious sweet potato. You could also use just any kind of white potato that you like as a starchy veg, and it makes a great base for everything else we're going to add. And this just has a lot more fall flavor. Now I'm going to hold this in my claw so that will keep my fingers out of the way when I use my knife. And I'm gonna hold it in the middle and pinch on both sides. And I'm just gonna start making slices about 1/2 inch wide, 1/2 inch to 1 inch really. You want your final slices, or your final cubes, I should say, to be about bite size, something that will fit on a fork. Keep that in mind as you're chopping. I'm going to take a couple of these slices I've just made and cut them into little strips of about the same width. And then when I cut across those strips, I get little cubes, and that's where we want to go. I'm going to throw those in a bowl for right now. I'm going to wipe my board down for the next vegetable, and that will be an onion. You can use whatever kind of onion you have on hand. This could be, I have a white one. You could use the sweet yellows or a red or even small green onions. Or if you have a shallot, you could use that as well. I'm going to dice this onion, and it's a few steps on that. I'm going to pull it toward me, put my claw on top, and make a couple of cuts going from the stem end to the root end of this half of the onion. And I'm gonna try to keep those cuts about the same width apart, and notice that I'm only going to the end. I'm not cutting through, I'm leaving that end together. Now I'm gonna turn that onion toward me. And my cuts are gonna be the same size again. Once again, using the claw so I keep my fingers out of the way of the knife. These are also about 1/2 inch apart, so this is a really large dice. And then when I turn that onion back, all I have to do is cut across everything, and I get a great medium dice. This is a great recipe for using things up toward the end of the growing season. I've also got a lovely bell pepper here. Any color of bell pepper would be nice. And so I just find a stable side and I start cutting the big sides off, and I can discard the seed pod and all of the ribs and this stem all at one time. Now I'm gonna cut all of these into wide strips, again, about that 1/2 inch mark. Do you see how I'm trying to keep everything at about the same size? And then I cut across those strips and get about 1/2 inch squares. I also have an apple. Yes, we're going to put an apple into a savory dish. It's a very fall dish. I'm gonna leave the peel on that. I'm putting it on its shoulders. I've already removed the stem. And I'm going to cut a side off so I can lay it down flat and cut the other sides off the core. If you prefer to remove the core first, that's fine. And then I'm just gonna make big slices like you would if you were gonna have an apple for a snack. And cut across those slices again into bite-sized pieces. This is also a Honeycrisp apple, but any of the varieties that you find, I mean, apple is the fruit of fall, would mix well with this recipe because we're using all sorts of different kinds of vegetables. Here I have some lovely local kale. You could use any kind of green you wanted. You could use spinach, chard, any cooking greens. So I'm gonna strip each of these. Some of these stems are a little bit big. If you get baby greens and they don't have much of a stem, you don't have to worry about this piece. But where these are sticking out just a little bit, I'm gonna strip the leaves off of the stem so that we don't have stems sticking out. Okay, I'm gonna put this in a bowl to the side. To give us even more color, more vegetables, more kinds of nutrition, I have a little bit of red cabbage here. I've already cut it in half, but cabbage seems to grow as you cut it, so I'm actually gonna cut that into a quarter. I want to take the core out. The core is really tough and doesn't have much flavor, so we're gonna get rid of that. Now that I have this nice, neat quarter of a cabbage, all I have to do is use my claw again and just slide my knife down over this quarter and just slightly, it's like a really big shred. It's like a slice or a really big shred. If you wanted to do this and have a food processor and you have a slicer blade, that would make very quick work out of this. When it gets a little wobbly or it's not feeling super stable, to be safe, you might want to turn it on a different side. And our final vegetable is a carrot. And like the other root vegetables, if you have a carrot, that would be nice, or a parsnip. Really, any root vegetable that you like would work well here if you're into turnips or something like that. I'm gonna take the tip off this carrot and the top. And then because this one's really big, I'm gonna cut it in half, and that also gives me a nice stable side, and then I'm gonna cut it in 2 quarters. I'm just going to slice this into bite-sized pieces. Now, as the carrot grows bigger, I'm gonna get a little thinner with my slices so that each piece still stays about the same volume and cooks quickly. And lastly, I'm going to pop a couple of garlic cloves out of their skin. The easiest way to do that is to place it on a stable side, put your knife down on top, and then just hit the knife with the palm of your hand or a fist, and that pops the garlic out. Well, I'm gonna hit this one more time to pop the garlic out. If you are instead using the jarred garlic that's already minced up, then you may want to use about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of that, depending on how much garlic you like. Okay, so once you've sliced the garlic, you can put your knife, the tip of your knife, down on the board, put your hand flat on the back of it, and then just lift and lower it, rocking it up and down so that you get a mince. And in a mince, we're looking for 1/8 of an inch or smaller, but more important than anything is that everything is the same size, so it cooks at the same rate. And we're just about there with this garlic. I'm gonna grab another bowl to put it in. You can use any kind of prep bowls to get all your veggies together. And if you don't like some of this, just leave it out, or if you have something to substitute, put that back in. Now that's all of our veggies ready for our fall harvest hash, but we need to make our vinaigrette next. So I just have a medium-sized bowl and a whisk. If you don't happen to have a whisk, you can also use a fork. So you can make your own vinaigrette. A vinaigrette can just be an acid and some kind of oil, so lemon juice and olive oil or something like that. About a 1:2 to 1:3 ratio. So if you have 1 part of acid, you want 2 to 3 parts of oil. And that is a basic vinaigrette. We're gonna make a very fall-inspired vinaigrette today. So I have a little bit of acid in apple cider vinegar, but I also have a little bit of apple cider as well for some sweetness. So this is gonna be a sweet tart vinaigrette for all of these veggies that we're putting together. I'm gonna dump in my apple cider vinegar and my apple cider. That's about 3 tablespoons of the vinegar and almost half a cup, right at half a cup of the cider. Now, a great way to bring the acid and the fat together is some kind of protein, and for that we're going to use Dijon mustard. We have 1 tablespoon of that. You could use any kind of mustard that you want. If you'd like a whole grain, or if you have just regular mustard sitting around, that would be fine as well. And some kind of sweetener. Today I've got honey, but you could use anything you have around. If you have a little maple syrup, if you have some agave syrup, or even some sorghum or molasses, that would work well in this. And there's about a tablespoon of that as well. Now at this point, when we get this together, I'm gonna whisk so that these things combine. Now I've got a couple of optional add-ins for this, and that is I have some dried thyme. You could use dried or fresh. Since this is dried, I'm using close to a teaspoon of this. If you were using fresh, you could use 2 to 3 times as much. And then I've got a little turmeric, and I know this might seem a little strange to add to a fall dish, but turmeric gives it a beautiful golden color, just like the leaves are turning. And also it's really great for you in regard to anti-inflammatory properties. So we're gonna mix all of that together. Now that we have our base ready, we're gonna drizzle in some olive oil. I have 3/4 of a cup of olive oil for all of this liquid, and with that mustard in there, it should blend together pretty well and make a salad dressing viscosity. So drizzle slowly, because what you're trying to do with your whisk or your fork is break up all these little fat globules. And you have to have time. All of these little tines on the whisk are breaking all that up. If you see oil pooling, you may want to stop pouring for a second and whisk that in. If you're good at this, when you get good at making your own dressings, then you don't even have to measure really. You can kind of just go by eye. This is starting to get thicker. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt. Generous pinch of salt. That was close to 1/4 of a teaspoon, and a tiny pinch of black pepper. That was more like 1/8 of a teaspoon. Now before I dump all this on anything, I will give it a taste. And the last thing that we want to do before we start cooking is get our optional garnishes together. Now you don't have to do these, but it's just a little fun way to add some texture, add a little bit of protein, and add a little flavor. So right here I have some hazelnuts. You could use, if you tolerate nuts, you could use any kind you want. You could also use seeds, such as sesame seeds or pumpkin seeds. Anything like that would be great for a little extra crunch. I have roasted these already on 400 for about 6 minutes. You always want to set a timer for nuts because they will burn very quickly. And I have my trusty meat tenderizer right here, and I'm just going to tap the nuts. I could also chop with my knife and just break them up into rough pieces. You could do this with a rolling pin or any heavy object you have in the kitchen that's safe for food surfaces. You could also pulse these in a food processor just a couple of times, and that will do it too. So now we've got those in a bowl, and one last garnish. I've got some lovely chives right here. Now, when you are cutting up herbs, the one thing you want to do is you want to slice them, not bruise them. So you want to use a sharp knife. I'm going to cut these off and get them even. So I'm taking the tops off, tossing those away. With chives, I like to cut them really small, unless I'm using them for a garnish and some kind of little hors d'oeuvre. So I cut these really, really tiny, about 1/8 of an inch or so. So that means you have to be very careful. You have to use the claw, and I'm gonna put my knife down, the tip of my knife, and that's gonna guide me so that I keep each of these slices regular and the same size. And I just sort of slide my knife back and forth. The tip never leaves the cutting board, but my blade goes down, and that way I'm slicing and not just smashing the chives. And you only really need a couple tablespoons worth of fresh herbs to finish off a lovely dish like this. And that will work right there. Just gonna leave those chives on my board, and we'll move over to the saute pan next so that we can cook up our hash. So to start cooking, you want to have everything close to you so that you don't have to run away from a hot pan and possibly burn something. So I'm also going to show you the order in which I'm going to cook these things, and we'll put them in that order. I'm going to start with the onions, the red pepper, the carrot slices, the apple, and the cabbage. Those things are going to take a little bit longer to cook, or they're harder veg, and so we're going to put those in first. Then the garlic will go next because it's tiny and it'll cook really fast. Our sweet potatoes are already cooked, so we just need to warm those through. And we're just wanting to wilt our kale or whatever green that you add to it. So I'm going to turn my burner on, and I'm turning it on about medium-high. Now, if you have an electric range with the numbers on it, that's going to be about 6.5 to 7, depending on the size of your burner. Bigger burners are a little bit hotter. Okay, I've got my pan on, and I can feel that there's heat radiating off of it. So that's when I know that the pan's nice and hot. Then I like to put the oil in so that it doesn't sit there and get hot along with the pan. And we want just enough oil. This could be olive oil or cooking oil, whatever you have on hand. We want just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. Now, if you've got a good hot pan, then you should immediately start to see your oil shimmer a little bit. You don't want to see smoke coming off of it. That means your pan is too hot. So you just want to see the little shimmer. It looks like a mirage on a hot day on the highway. When you go into hot oil into a hot pan, you actually want to get close to it. That may not be your natural inclination, but if you drop things from up here or from what you think is a safe distance, you might splatter hot oil up on yourself. So we're going to get into the pan and just lay each one of these in. So I'm starting with the onions and the red peppers. And you can use a wooden spoon or a metal spoon if that's safe for your pan. I have a high heat silicone spatula, and that way I don't have to worry about what kind of pan I'm using. And you want to move things around. This is fairly high heat. So if you let things sit too long, they're going to burn. Now, when do I add anything else? Well, when your onions start to turn translucent and they're not quite as opaque as they were before, when they get a little clear around the edges, that's when you can add your next ingredients. So I'm going to add the carrots and the apples now. And you need a really big saute pan for this dish if you use all of these ingredients. You want to give it room to move around and for surfaces to hit the heat. You also may need to modulate your heat a little bit, turn it down just a touch with these apples in here. They're going to give off their juice. Apples contain a lot of sugar, so if things start to stick on you, turn your heat down and make sure to stir frequently. We're starting to see all this color come together. Now, what's the next step and how do we know? Well, when your apples start to get a little bit of browning on them, browning from the cooking, not from hitting the air, then we can add our cabbage to the mix. So I'm getting a little bit of golden on these apples. It looks like they're losing their sharpness, so they're getting a little tender. Now I'm gonna add the cabbage. And at this high heat, you should really start to see some changes in your carrots, in your peppers, and then this cabbage is going to wilt down. getting all glossy from the oil. And a tip on preference on this is I like things to still have a little bit of crunchiness or toothsomeness. I don't like to cook things till they're all mushy. And that way when we add something softer like our sweet potato or something that's not gonna have a lot of texture once it's cooked like our kale, I like to have a little crunch left. So I don't cook my veggies down till they're completely soft. However, if that's what you like, then you might want to turn your burner down a bit and then leave these on just a wee bit longer. At this point too, I'm going to start seasoning my dish. So I'm going to take a pinch, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, and put that on there so that the salt can start seasoning and bringing out all the flavors of these fruits and veg. And when everything seems to get a little tender and happy together, then we'll add our garlic. And now we're only gonna saute the garlic for about a minute because we don't want it to burn. But we don't want that raw garlic taste either. And then you get that fragrance in the air. You're probably gonna make your neighbors jealous at this point. And now, about a minute later, we'll add the cooked sweet potato. And again, we're just warming that through. Now, that's sort of the main ingredient that makes a hash a hash. Basically, you're taking leftovers, usually baked potatoes, boiled potatoes. Think of a corned beef hash, like you have after St. Patrick's Day, a little onion, and then whatever else you want to mix in. So a hash is just a mixture of all different things. It's great for using up stuff that's in your fridge, and you can just chop it all up and throw it together and saute it in the pan. It should only take a few minutes for the sweet potatoes to get heated through. And then we'll add our kale last. And now it seems like it's gonna come out of the pan, but the kale is going to wilt way down, so you don't have to worry about that. But you may wanna be a little bit gentler with how you stir everything around. You're mostly gonna fold the hot stuff over and tuck, there goes one leaf, tuck the kale in amongst the rest of the veggies. Now, if you start getting a little bit brown on the bottom, lower your heat. And you can, you don't have to worry if you get a little bit of brown stuff on the bottom of your pan. That's actually gonna be really good once we add some of our final ingredients here, our lovely vinaigrette. So these are some beautiful fall colors we've got here. This is a great side dish, but it can also be a main if you want to add some kind of protein to it. If you have a can of beans, or if you have some leftover chicken or pork, or you could even fry an egg and put it on top. That's a very typical way to finish up a hash, is a fried egg on top. And that would make a complete meal. All right, you see how my leaves have wilted? I'm gonna season one more time because I've added a lot more stuff. This is a little bit bigger pinch. This is more like half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. And now I'm gonna do a pinch of pepper. Be careful with that. You can inhale the pepper very easily. That'll make you sneeze. And see, I've got some browning on the bottom, and that's okay because I'm gonna turn my heat off. And I'm not gonna add all of my vinaigrette at once. I'm just gonna drizzle a little bit around the outside. And the acid, be careful about that because when you heat vinegar, also, you're gonna inhale it. But the acid in the vinaigrette is gonna help me scrape up all these little brown bits, and that's gonna be a lovely way to add flavor and depth to what is essentially a vegetarian dish. It's gonna give it a roundness and that sort of hefty flavor that we like. And this is a little bit loose right now, but all of these starchy vegetables will absorb that vinaigrette. So that's why I like to make plenty, especially if you're making this ahead and it sits for a while, because it might get a little dry because all of those starchy veg are gonna seize onto that liquid and absorb it. Now to plate. All right, and when you get ready to serve this, this is such a gorgeous dish that you really don't have to do a whole lot to it. I'm just going to put some of this on a nice plate. Of course, if you're using it as a side, you wouldn't have to worry about this. I'm just gonna put a pile kind of in a diagonal on the plate and let it fall and do what it may. And you have all that color and the brightness of the turmeric. And to finish it, I have those smashed hazelnuts we can sort of sprinkle on and around. If you have a favorite infused oil, if you don't do the vinaigrette and have a favorite infused oil, you could do a little drizzle of that around it. And I've got the fresh herb here. I've got chives today, but any sort of chives are good, or the more woody herbs like sage and thyme are good to sprinkle on this dish.
That looks delicious, and it's a perfect dish for sharing with others. We hope you try this with brain-healthy ingredients throughout this season and the others to come. Another activity to do for brain health might be getting crafty for the season. Crafts are a fun and exciting way to engage your brain, its health, and your creativity. Crafting can increase your mood, improve self-confidence, and reduce stress. It can also improve mental agility, as well as gross and fine motor movements. Plus, you'll have some wonderful new decorations or gifts to share with a friend by the end of it. Let's sit back and watch as we learn how to make some fall crafts.
Welcome to Kelly's Crafts. Catchy name, I know. To get in the spirit of fall, we're going to be making a fall banner using leaves, paper bags, twine, tape, and glue. You can use real leaves or fake leaves, but this is going to be an easy craft anyone can do. You can do it by yourself or together. So first you're going to want to take the lunch bag and fold it in half. When you fold it in half, make sure that the bottom part of the bag is folded inside. Next, you're just going to make a diagonal cut against the grain, just like this. So as you can see, this is our first banner. We're going to go ahead and use this template for the other lunch bags to cut. Let me fold this in half. Again, the bottom flap of the lunch bag is in the middle. Put this on here. And just go ahead and cut that right there. All right. Once you've had all of your banners cut, what you want to do is put the leaves on them. So you have your 2 banners, or I'm doing 6 total, whatever you prefer. And on the flat side down, you want to grab your leaf. Now this is a natural leaf that I got from a tree in the yard, or you can also find crafting leaves at the Dollar Tree and other craft stores around. You want to take your glue stick and really be liberal with it, and just put the glue on here. It's purple, but it dries clear, so it's not going to be purple. And then take the back of your leaf and also, again, very liberally add the glue stick to it. And then just press it down. Just like that. Oh, the same for the other. Very liberally apply. And take your leaf. This is a natural one. Again, very liberally with the glue. Make sure you push it down correctly. All right. So this is what it's going to look like. And if you see on the back, the flap opens like this. So what we're going to do next is, now that we have all of our leaves on our banner or pennants, we're going to flip them over just like this. You can use a ruler if you have one, but again, it's not necessary. And get some twine. You can use yarn, you can use twine, you can use fishing wire. It's whatever you have around the house. Just as long as you want to make it. There's no right or wrong here. It's just what you feel would look good or what you would like to do. So cut the string that you've chosen and start with the first one, leaving a little bit at the end, and just put it under that flap from the lunch bag. And then we're going to use some tape. Tape it down. Now what I like to do is just have a ruler and measure out 5 inches, just so I know that there's going to be some clear divide between them. And at that 5-inch mark, again, place that flap on the string. Grab your tape and tape it down. You're going to continue this. Now I've chosen to make 5 pennants on the banner. You can certainly make more or less depending on what you prefer. Again, just putting it on the back of the string and taping it down. This is not an exact science, so really it's okay if they're together, it's okay if they're further apart, but once you've done that, you have a really beautiful leaf banner for fall.
We hope you've enjoyed that activity. Remember, it's the process of doing the activity that is important, not the finished product. It could be fun to try again with a friend. As these activities focuses our attention on the changing autumn season, we may want to think about the changes that may come in the future. There may be challenges we may face as time goes on. Thinking about and planning your own personal healthcare directives or living wills is an important activity for all of us at any age. Let's hear how those documents can help us and how important they can be.
It is always a good idea to be prepared, especially preparing for the time when you may be unable to make healthcare decisions for yourself. While no one really enjoys thinking about this, it is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself and your loved ones. It gives you control by documenting your wishes for your care for the future. Preparing for this time includes having a healthcare directive or a living will. A healthcare directive allows you to name someone to act on your behalf to make healthcare decisions if you cannot make them for yourself. This may also be called a durable power of attorney in some states. A living will is a legal document that tells the healthcare community what medical treatments you would or would not want to be used to keep you alive, as well as your preference for other medical decisions, such as pain management or organ donation. You may choose to have a DNR, a do not resuscitate order, or a DNI, a do not intubate order, if you were to decide what you would not want cardiopulmonary resuscitation or to have mechanical ventilation. Some states have a physician's order for life-sustaining treatment, or POLST, and in some states it may be called the Medical Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatments, or MOLST. This document is intended for individuals who have already been diagnosed with a serious illness. This form does not replace other directives, but serves as doctor-ordered instructions to ensure that you receive the care you prefer. When deciding on a person to act as your healthcare agent and make healthcare decisions for you, it is important to thoroughly select someone who meets your state's requirements for a healthcare agent. Someone who is not your doctor or part of your healthcare team, but who is willing to be able to discuss end-of-life issues with you and is trustworthy and will make decisions that go along with your wishes. If you already have these documents in place, it is a good idea to look over them and make sure they are up to date with who you would choose today. You can always change your mind and update healthcare directives, but you should check with your state to see what the guidelines are. These are all very personal decisions. Consulting with your doctor about his or her medical recommendations can be helpful. Consulting with an attorney and having him or her draft these documents allows you to feel more confident, as he or she will provide their expertise in the legal matters. If you need legal assistance, you may qualify for assistance from the Legal Services Corporation. They are a nonprofit establishment established by Congress in 1974 to provide financial support for low-income Americans. The corporation currently provides funding to 132 independent nonprofit legal aid organizations in every state and U.S. territories. They can be reached at 202-295-1500.
We hope this educational segment has been helpful. Although it may be overwhelming, we recommend you think about planning for your future and get your own healthcare directive and/or living will in place. You should be in control of your own healthcare delivery and make sure that your wishes are always known and respected. We would like to thank you all for joining us today for this episode. We hope that we've given you some excellent ideas for ways to engage in fun activities, prepare for the future, and most of all, keep your brain healthy for years to come. See you next time on Brain Boost.